Okay, so I'm back with another episode of For the Love of Humanity. And I'd like to introduce you to a new series that I'm going to be doing. And this is on transformation. I sort of feel like it's in transformation we trust is the tagline that feels really good around it. But I talk a lot about transformation on my Instagram page. It's what I help people do one-on-one. And I really want to talk about my experience through transformation, my deep dives. These are like not half-baked conclusions, but more so really, really deep, embodied experiences of how I've gone through transformation and change over the last arguably 10 years, but really ramping up in the last 5, and then even more so condensed the pressure that creates a diamond over the last 2, I would say. So I'm going to have 6 parts to this series. They're probably going to be anywhere ranging from 20 minutes or so. And I just want to talk about the areas of transformation that really stand out to me and how I've been able to gain the perspective that I've been able to gain that helps me with my alignment and helps me create the things that I intentionally want to create. And it helps me stay positive and optimistic and actually trust in my life, trust in the journey of my life. So thank you for joining me, and here we go. Okay, so in all sincerity, sometimes I hold off recording these because of sound quality or even interruptions, and having it be this perfected studio production. And really, I just prefer to get out there what I want to get out there. And so if you hear some things in the background, I'll preface that I have a dog. She's somewhat unpredictable. Sometimes she lays there with me and is really great at my feet, and sometimes she tiptoes around, taps around on her toes and her nails, and sometimes you'll hear bird noises, cat noises, all kinds of things in the background. I'll try my best to keep some soft, mellow music on so it doesn't overtake the recording, but just to be transparent, sometimes this is what holds me back, and no longer will it hold me back. So this week I want to talk about intentional evolution. So what I think we're going through currently right now is, I mean, there's a lot of people talking about an awakening of consciousness, an expansion of consciousness, a collective awakening, a collective experience of really becoming aware of who we are as creators and what we're capable of. And I think that in many regards, this is right. There's a lot of, buzz lingo out there about what this looks like. And there's a variety of different communities and groups jumping into this idea, and I think it's wonderful. I think that anybody that's raising the general perspective of what we can accomplish, and who's out there, recognizing that we are improving and we are getting to more unified common ground about what collectively we want to experience as human beings doing this life together on this planet currently, I think it's wonderful. I think that there are many areas where we can become divided on what that actually looks like and how to accomplish that. I think there are many areas where people can fall into self-judgment or judgment of other around how we get there. But I'm going to focus more on pulling back the information so that individually we can look at our own autonomy and our own personal empowerment around how we experience that. So, as I said, I believe we're going through an intentional evolution. This is different than an evolution that's happening sort of on autopilot or as a background running program. I believe that as we become more conscious, we become more aware of how we can partner with the evolution that is already happening anyways. We're already evolving beings. Our bodies already evolved to adapt to diseases, to adapt to situations, change. We're adaptive creatures. And this is where I get a lot of my optimism from, because we are adaptive. We really literally wouldn't exist if we were weak, fragile, and meant to not be here. We just, as a species, we wouldn't be here. So there's comfort in the fact that we are here, that we are thriving, and that we continue to adapt. And what I'm really excited about at this season of my life is the conscious co-creation of that evolution. Like we can consciously notice it, become aware of it, become excited about it, steer it to the degree that we can. I think it becomes really exciting, and that's when life really feels like you're getting the juice from it. Like you're really living a life you savor when you can engage with life on that level. And it also helps you elevate when things are feeling a little rocky and where you're hitting individual waves. You can remember the bigger picture. So I think this intentional evolution is about focused care, like really focusing on what we actually care about and remembering that we do care and what are the things we care about. Our care is like such a great power that we get to place in things, and we get to choose what we care about, right? I've heard lately, your focus is food. I love this phrase because it reminds me whatever I'm focusing on is feeding that thing. And I've talked about this in Energy First, and when I talk about energetics, that whatever we're giving our focus, time, and attention to is feeding that thing. Whether we like it or not, it's like the honest to goodness bare truth of it all. And so that becomes really exciting when we realize, oh, my focused care is like sunlight and water to a plant. Like I can really determine what I'm going to put my focused care into. And when it's authentic care and I actually do care, it's nutrient rich. It's formative, it's growth focused, right? So in this intentional evolution that I'm geared towards right now, that I'm so interested in, that takes up so much of my mind space and my heart space, it's positive progression. It's the arrival to conscious co-creation. It's the fact that we are waking up to understanding, like, I have more power than I previously understood. I am able to create. I am able to co-create my shared experience with others. And as we all step into this role, there's incredible human potential. Like there is so much potential when we all start looking into, well, what do I actually want to be a part of? What makes me feel good? What makes me come alive? When do I feel my most favored? Or what's my favorite feeling when I'm around people? And imagine a room full of people all feeling that at the same time. How incredible. How can I create every interaction at least having a subtle undertone, if not a full overtone, of that feeling of I'm here, I'm lit up, I'm happy, and I'm excited. Now, I don't want this to get confused with bypassing negative feelings. That's not what I'm saying at all. But when we have the opportunity to take the wheel and steer the ship, why not steer it towards something that feels good? And when you have a bunch of people doing stuff that feels good, being expansive, helping one another out, really sharing the experience of being happy to be alive, I just don't think you can go wrong. So understanding that that's how we create a collective experience. And we see this in like smaller community or smaller groups where we can create this feeling, and we can see where it can very quickly turn south, where we create this feeling of maybe a negative environment, how a couple people could start a conversation that's somewhat critical, and you watch how that gets passed around like a hot potato until the whole room's brought down, right? And so when we have the ability to be a beacon of light and to shine a higher perspective or a broader perspective, it can be so refreshing. And that's what I'm excited to talk about. The world of healing has really been somewhere where I've been focused for quite some time. And although I do enjoy it and have a tremendous respect for it, I'm also getting more and more excited to leave behind the complete and utter focus on healing and start to be excited about what do we create? Once we feel healed to a certain degree, what do we get to create? What do we get to enjoy next? The version of me that wanted, let's say, to be a professor, and that was very exciting, was a different version of me now that is like, okay, but what can I create when I don't need to prove I'm smart enough, when I don't need to prove I've got a great title at work, when I don't necessarily need to prove that a certain job security is the most important thing in the world to me. Like when all of these things are sort of met and I was satisfied, and then I found that there was more that needed to be had or more that I desired to experience, what next? And I've been in the extremely beneficial position over the last couple years to really sit with that and deeply feel into what is next. And of course, in the beginning, that's like a scary feeling. Like, what do you mean I get to choose my wants on this level? And that might sound silly, but it really was very weird for me in the moment, because what I had decided was the peak was now the next plateau for the next summit. And wow, being at the bottom, and then every time you get to the next peak and you realize your choices, the smaller nuance and the smaller discernment now becomes a huge landscape of possibility. And that I can choose the way in which I experience things, not just what I experience. I can choose the tone, the energy, the feeling, the vibe of what I experience in every moment. It's like this conscious co-creative awareness opened up a whole world to me of like, from moment to moment, I can hold more of what I want. Wow, it's not just about getting by in any particular environment or gritting my teeth through any particular experience or interaction. It's more about nuancing it to my favor. So when I do have the capacity of presence, when I am fully in a moment and excited about what I'm experiencing, it opens up even more, and I have even more opportunity and choice. And wow, to be able to hold that for longer and longer and longer is like, sometimes it feels like it's training endurance almost. Like, how much can I hold my own choice for a long time without sort of like falling back into program thinking, or allowing choice to be shown to me, or allowing others to choose a choice, or just doing what seems to make other people feel happier, or what would be other people's preferences. And sometimes even, I'm going to give you a little side note, sometimes even I've noticed that other people that I'm around that I would normally sort of like sublimate my desire for theirs, sometimes they don't even fully know what they want. And I've introduced, well, let's try and do this, or let's do this thing, or I've kind of taken the wheel and sort of steered the interaction into something like light, bubbly, fun, creative. And they've been actually really excited to see what's on the other side of that, or to engage with that. So I would say sometimes, even if we're, allowing others to choose, it's a great thing sometimes to step in and choose ourselves and bring it up to this other level, or to this other area that maybe they didn't even realize was there. And they're really grateful for the experience of, feeling into what you think is wonderful. So really just captaining my own ship, reading the energy of an interaction and deciding, is there something a little more broad, or a little more exciting, or a little more creative, or how can I engage with this person on a level that gives them a tickle and I feel really excited about it as well. So leaning into that in my interactions. And that takes a bit of capacity, because I would say there were certain times in my life where I felt like I didn't have the energy to be that on in an interaction, where I'd kind of backseat certain experiences and interactions and sort of let it take me. Another side note, don't get me wrong, there are incredible benefits to letting the universe show you a show. Like, where you're like, okay, I'm just going to be led. This is going to be so fun. What are you going to show me? That's completely different than being led by other people and maybe their programming, or other people and what their habits are. Like, if they have a certain routine that they do the same thing every week, and you just sort of like, okay, universe, let me go along for the ride with this. If it's a really ingrained habit that's somewhat unconscious, I don't know it's going to be the same experience. But when I really just allow the universe to show me, okay, today I'm not going to make plans, what's going to come in front of me, and I'll get to say yes or no to everything. And that's sort of what I mean a little bit more. Or over a chunk of time, a period of time, I decidedly pair with the universe to say, okay, well, what's coming up in my field, and what do I get to experience because of this, where I'm not trying to control as much. So I think there are different levels in being, led by program circumstance versus being completely open to the excitement of kismet or synchronicity that can arrive to meet you when you're open to the possibility of it, and when you can hold that level of presence, awareness, expansion, excitement, trust, enjoyment, and zest for life. So coming to terms with that is really interesting. I am that powerful. I can enjoy my life. I can sort of take back my power and enjoy my life for longer periods of time. I can like be fully on and excited, and excited doesn't mean like expelling a ton of energy, just being elated to be alive. Like I can be on, like Abram Hicks, like tapped in, tuned in, turned on. Like I can feel like in my vibe, I can feel in my energy and feel that like flow, that exciting wave. I can feel that more often than not. Wow. And that's what I mean by the endurance run. Like it takes a little bit to develop that, but once you start to exercise that muscle or train with that endurance, it becomes easier and easier to hold. And not only that, it becomes more robust, so that the little things that would be hiccups, you see the hiccups for what they are. They don't, completely disappear, but they certainly don't pull you off your track, because the feeling is just so good. You can hold it. It's just easier to really have that full expansiveness, and you don't get tripped up by it. You sort of like hurtle over it a little bit, or like see it, metabolize it, and keep going, right? Like those coins, like jumping for coins in Super Mario Brothers. So I would have to say that when I think about us being that powerful, it really feels like an empowered state of simultaneous surrender and focused, energetic attention. And this takes self-discipline, right? It takes self-discipline to learn this, to see this, to pay attention to it enough. And in the beginning, it sometimes can feel overwhelming, like paying attention to that level, being aware for that amount of time, especially, like I have to tell you, there's certain scenarios and situations where I would just naturally tune out. I'd take a back seat. I would only half be there. And if people were to talk to me in those times, I'd be like, huh, pardon? And I'd have to ask them to repeat themselves, because I was sort of becoming numb to the presence, to not expend as much energy, almost like on hibernation mode or sleep mode while in these scenarios. And the more I've been able to practice this, the more energy I have to stay present, and the more energy I have to stay present to then wield that experience to be one of favor. Like I like to take certain days. I'll let you a little bit in on my lifestyle. On Thursdays, me and my husband go to the market. We stop off at our favorite little cafe to have a little breakfast. And then we go to a grocery store we really enjoy. And all day I try to stay in this feeling of like favor. My sister and I joke about this silky river. Like I try to feel into this vibe of like expansion and excitement and enjoyment, and just see if I can milk it for all it's worth. And so when I talk to people, I'm complimentary. I enjoy them. I genuinely look for connection. This is not floating around compliments for the sake of it. It's genuinely connecting, looking in the eyes of everybody I talk to. And I just noticed that putting out that little bit of effort on the way and really holding that context of like feeling good and feeling vibey, the universe meets me. I can't explain it anything other way than like synchronicity, kismet, good vibes, whatever it is. And you'll feel into people want to play at that level. They'll start like talking to you at that level. They'll have fun with you. And it almost feels like you're playing a really good game of ping pong all day long with different players. And it's just fun. It's light. And I end up loving my life so much on those days. So much comes to me. So many like weird, lucky things start happening. And it's really a great vibey day. And I feel really glad to be alive. I feel connected to everybody I meet. I feel fortunate for all the experiences I have. I get to know people's names and I remember them. And it really does connect with me on a really deep level. Plus, it holds my focus and present moment awareness. So I get this great day of practicing being fully present and aware all day long. And it's really cool. I get to have my favorite day and my favorite things happen. Now, sure, there are some Thursdays where it doesn't play out completely like that. But while I'm committed to that energy, while I have the self-discipline to remember, like, no, this is my day, little trip-ups can happen. But within moments, I end up getting like information as to what the little trip up was or why it happened, or I see it from a higher perspective and it's like, oh, cool. And it all gets brought into the fold. It doesn't detract from the day. It actually ends up adding value to the richness of the day because there's a variant in gradation. And I must say, on those days, I'm more naturally drawn to people who just let themselves be themselves unabashedly and unapologetically. And like the more different people are and the more they let themselves show, it just I just get so excited for humanity. I get so excited about, oh my God, I'm so glad to be here where people are so different and they get to show themselves off in such a different way. Like they get to walk and I get to see who they are and I get to genuinely and generally appreciate these people. Like there's a person that I see every week and I just love their vibe. And I'm like, I like how you express. Like as like bare bones as that statement is, I like how you express. I like how you express who you are. The way you express is like, I like being around it. I can feel your vibe. You feel good about yourself. Together, we've just clashed in this little wave of like, not clashed, but crashed in this wave together. And the energy feels like a starburst. Like, whoosh. It's just like a gusher. Like for that moment that our energy feels bump up against each other, it feels like refreshing, like juicy. I don't know how to describe it. So, and it feels like this joyous progression of opportunity, of options, like all around a profound recognition of choice. And it reminds me, these days are so good to my soul because they remind me we always have a choice. You always have a choice. And that might sound like some like broad statement. I made another broad statement on my Instagram this week, that fear is a lie. And I'll get into that another time. But like those broad statements, I know they can sound like, eye roll. But honestly, we always have a choice. Now, it doesn't mean we always have the choice to have like, I want to have the choice to have $1 million in 5 seconds. Like, you know, that's not necessarily what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like a deeper running truth that we always have the choice. And for me, what I'm really coming to is that we always have the choice to perspectivize. I like that word. I don't even know if it is a word, but it falls in line with like praxis, right? Practice, experimentation, witnessing, wisdom, the layering of taking in information, embodying that information, walking it out, learning new information because of that. It's like a compounding effect. The 1 + 1 = 3, right? So for me, this idea of choice is like perspective. We always have the choice to choose our perspective. We always have the ability to perspectivize. We accept what's happening in the present and we choose how we want to program it in. And if we know that we remember things more that are, paired with an emotion, then we get to choose how we're going to program that in. A circumstance can happen to me and I can program it in as a traumatic event, or I can program it in as a learning event. And when we can start to do that, that means how we live life, the building blocks and the foundation of how we see our life start to add up to something that's, wow, I'm growing over a lifetime. I get to learn every day. The tapestry of my life is one of growth, learning, wisdom, building, as opposed to like a ton of shitty things have happened to me over and over and over again. As opposed to like, I've been traumatized, and re-traumatized again over and over again. Like we can choose how we perspectivize that. And I get where at one point in our lives when we were children, we weren't as conscious to this co-creative process. Actually, technically speaking, we weren't conscious that much. We were in delta and theta states up until the age of 7. So we were very much in our subconscious, just automatic programming, taking in information of the world, learning absolutely as much as we could. Our learning process wasn't interrupted by our conscious brain picking it apart, dissecting it, deciding, right? It's not until we hit after that point that our conscious mind kicks in more and starts to categorize and tell us what's what and starts to attempt to steer the ship. So really, when we were younger, we take in all this information and yeah, some of it can come in and get programmed to be bare hurtful. But now that we're older and we think about these things, we can ask ourselves, is this really that traumatic? Am I here? Am I still okay? Can I get through this? Is it really that bad? Is there something I can learn? Am I safe? And in some of those cases, you might not feel that way. You might not feel safe. But I'm sure if you look at it, the majority of the time, you're able to say, actually, right in this moment, I am okay. And perhaps my fear might be coming from being fearful, from anxiety that comes up that's attached to something from my past. When I wasn't so conscious, when, bless me, I was a child and I really couldn't see this from that perspective because I didn't have that perspective. And biologically speaking, I wasn't really operating that way. So again, not my fault. And really just take the gift of the fact that I'm conscious now. I can choose how I want to perspectivize, how I want to program in, every experience in memory. And if I make sure that I tie up loose ends and ensure that the way I'm looking at life, that it is still safe to be here, that it is still fun, that there's still a lot I can experience with some positivity, that the world is actually still a wonderful place to be, I can start to reorient and rebuild my foundation. And the stuff that makes up my life then really does create that inner compass that does point to north. Like, I am safe. My life is good. I do trust life generally. Things aren't that scary. I don't feel scared. There's nothing really that horrendous happening in this actual moment right now that I'm sitting in. So I love thinking of that. We always have choice, and our choice is always our perspective. And when you start to think about that, there's an all-around profound recognition of our sovereignty and our free will. Like, I really am free to choose to do things. Like, that's a scary thing too when we think of sovereignty. And I use that word a lot. That's something that's a regular theme in my work, is teaching people you are sovereign, you have choice. Like, you know, you don't need to abdicate your authority or outsource your authority to other people. You get to choose how you want to experience things and if you want to experience things. And I mean, here's the thing, we live in a free will world, and sometimes it may not feel that way, but we literally do. And sometimes that free will means that some people get to do really heinous things. Like, and here's not a really heinous thing, but like an example is somebody can get up if you're sitting on a bus and smack you. Like, they can act out of impulse, right? That's our free will. And when we're in a lower consciousness state, our free will is coming from an impulsive programmed state. But when we are in our free will state and we've applied some wisdom and consciousness and expansion and compassion, and we start to really have compassion for ourselves, we then tend to make decisions from a non-impulsive state and a non-reactive state, but actually in response, from an observer perspective, from a what would the best option be? Because I have the energy for it and I might as well. What would the most expanded, excited, happy version of me do in this scenario? How would that version of me respond? And do I have the energy in this moment? Yeah, I do, and I can. And holy shit, now more and more interactions are actually feeling favorable and exciting. And oh my goodness, all these other doors are opening up where I actually didn't even think I'd be interested in this, and now I am. And now I'm interested in taking dance lessons, and now I'm interested in opening myself up in ways that previously felt vulnerable. And actually that just seemed like a fuzzy dark area in my brain, and now I can see it clearly that I'm willing to step into these areas that I walled off. I didn't even think were a possibility. Like, they didn't even register as a not possibility. They were just not even in the realm of possibility for me, that now are opening up. And that's what I mean by like this freedom of choice, because you start to see the world from the top floor of a huge building, and you see all of the perspective and all of the choice, as opposed to being in a tiny closet in the basement. And it's really a huge world of a difference when you get to elevate to that experience. And I don't say elevate in like a hierarchical way. I say it in what a gift. The gift of perspective, the gift of wisdom, the gift of expansion is such that you get to hone your discernment and you get to choose things that actually feel really good and not react and act from a programmed state. And that's the free will. The free will is the choice. You get to choose. And that's where empowerment and trust come in. Like, you have to believe that you're empowered. You have to believe that you have the ability to choose these things. You have the ability to choose anything. Like, even with regards to Buddhist philosophy, there are Buddhist monks that choose when they die. They literally choose when they expire. They make a decision. They sit there in ceremony, and they have, like, look it up on YouTube. It's incredible. We have the ultimate choice, regardless of what the world makes us believe, or what different, agents of socialization or institutions would have us believe. We are ultimately in the driver's seat. And sometimes that's a hefty realization to make, because we can start to look at the choices we have been making and feel like, but it's somebody else's fault. I was manipulated into choosing these foods or these substances or these pastimes or these relationships or these, and yeah, for sure. But the moment you're aware of it, then you really get to choose. You really get to choose. It is your choice. And I'm not saying the choice is easy, because shoot, habits run deep. programs run deep. And when you start to look at that stuff, it becomes real daunting. I can tell you, it is a mountain. It's a journey. It's a quest. It's a hero's journey for a reason. It is not for the faint of heart. But once the door is open a crack, you know you can't close it again. So welcome to your journey. I am your Sherpa for this ascension, and I'd love to walk you through it. So that's what the next few podcasts are going to be about, on co-creating. Once you awaken to this truth, it will continue to unfold for you and deepen from the material to the energetic, and you'll start to see, oh my goodness, the meaning behind everything, how you're actually being, how the synchronicity and the beauty of everything is actually unfolding for you and showing you something. Like, once you start to see it and be open to it, there's no denying it. And that's really the juice of life. Like, how exciting that things can be really, magical in that way. They are and they aren't, and they are and they aren't, because they're magical in one sense, because you could turn off the idea of knowing that it's all energetically connected, but then they're on a basic, scientific level, very connected. And it's the energetic pull and push and the magnetism and the cause and effect, and all these grand laws are behind why we experience things in the divine order and in the natural law order that we experience them in, right? But if we want to just kind of like fuzz that out for a second, put the veil on for a second, it's magical. It's quite magical. And look, sometimes it doesn't come in as crystal clear, right? And that's okay. That's usually because we've dipped into feelings that don't allow for us to have that expanded experience. But you zoom out again and you start to see all the connections all over again, and you realize they're always there. Connections are always there. The magic is always there because they're natural laws. They're always happening. Like the way we see gravity, it's always happening, right? We could choose to see it or not see it in certain aspects. We might tell ourselves in our minds that if we drop something, it's not necessarily going to fall. It's always happening. We're always connected to this other aspect. We're always connected to the other side. Some people call it spiritual. Some people call it universal connection. Some people call it energetic. We'll get into all the ins and outs of that. But really, we start to deepen on this journey. And this is our daily mission, right? The daily mission is to really open up to this more and more if we really want to get the juice out of life. If we really want to get the meaning of it and get the purpose. Like, really, what I've come to understand is you are your path. You're not getting off your path, because you are your path unfolding. You are it unfolding as you walk this life out, right? And your purpose is how you choose to experience that. Your purpose is, do I choose to experience it in a life-giving, fulfilling way? Or do I choose to experience it in a more, semi-conscious way or a numbed out way? Like, we are beings of free will. We have the choice. Am I going to make the choices? Am I going to take my health, my mental health, my time, my daily activity into my hands? Or am I going to outsource that authority to someone else? And ultimately, you have the choice to outsource, so you have the choice to be aware of every microsecond. And it's to what degree you open up to that, to what degree you can hold that responsibility and that capacity, and to what degree you enact that every day. And there's no judgment, shame, blame, there's no purgatory, only the purgatory of being semi-conscious and numb and really being miserable in your life every day, right? But otherwise, there's not really anybody that's going to come in and say, the whole thing, you messed it up, you effed it up, you wasted it. Like, you're the only person that feels that. You're the only one living in your skin, in your shoes, that really gets to decide and determine what this looks like. And that is where purpose comes in, and that is where you're walking your path. You're always walking it, whether you're walking it in circles, whether you're walking it up a mountain, whether you're walking it through a beautiful enchanted forest. You get to decide through your perspective. And that's what I think intentional evolution is: focused care, positive progression. And that's how we create an experience collectively. And you're going to find passengers or travelers on this journey that you vibe with, that remind you that it's okay to be exactly who you are, that suck the juice out of life as well, that really are here to enjoy it. And you're going to meet people who maybe aren't on that same, or aren't having a fortunate experience and are feeling really like life's got them and dragging them around. You'll see it all. And you get the choice to decide what that means for you. So this is my brief on transformation. In Transformation We Trust. Next time, I'm going to talk about co-creation and design and intelligent evolution and being the architect and what that looks like. But for now, thank you for joining me, and be well.